Welcome back to Historical Side Note. All right, fire alarm. Take these things seriously. Cue the intro while I go. Today we're going to be looking at Rick Rescorla. Let's get some quick background. He was born May 27th, 1939 and died September the 11th, 2001. And he comes from the town of Hale, which is in the southwest region of the United Kingdom. He served in the United Kingdom's Army from 1956 to 1960 and in the United States Army from 1963 until 1990, where he would retire with the rank of colonel. However, to many, his most notable actions would not be in the military, but rather in civilian life. But before we get to that, let's just take a quick look at his military career. In 1956, at the age of 17, Rick would join the United Kingdom's Army and serve as a paratrooper. For those who don't know, a paratrooper is a soldier who jumps out of a perfectly good airplane to bring the fight to the enemy behind their own lines. Pause. Let's check with the judges on that. Is jumping out of a perfectly good airplane crazy?
Ha! Got him!
Yeah, well, there you go. It says a little something about their character.
Harry, you got that crazy look in your eye!
In just 1 year into Rick's military service, he is deployed to the island of Cyprus, which is in the Mediterranean Sea and a colony of the United Kingdom. Cyprus was in the midst of a bitter political struggle, which turned violent. This lesser-known post-World War II conflict was fought over a complex decolonization effort that pitted Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots against each other, rivaling over territory, resource allocation, and the question of whether or not they should be reunified with Greece. And since Cyprus was a colony of the United Kingdom, Rick went there to help with the stabilization of the country. It would result in Rick gaining valuable military experience and the UK ultimately withdrawing from the region as the colonial overseer. Okay, fast forward, Rick has now moved to the United States and enlisted in the United States Army. He finds himself in the 1st Cavalry Division, led by the infamous Colonel Hal Moore. Even Hal Moore himself had a book written about him called We Were Soldiers Once and Young. And in this book, it chronicles the 1st Cavalry Division's actions in Vietnam, particularly the first major battle of the war, which was known as the Battle of La Drang Valley. It is here where Rick Rescorla would be awarded the Purple Heart for receiving injuries on the battlefield. And interestingly enough, on the cover of the book is none other than Rick Rescorla himself. And this book was adapted into a film called We Were Soldiers, starring Mel Gibson. Side note, I highly recommend this movie if you have not seen it.
Hastings! Broken arrow! Gentlemen! Prepare to defend yourself!
And as crazy as that all sounds, Hal Moore is still just a non-playable secondary character to this story.
Holy mechanical armies!
So after Vietnam, Rick returns to the United States and serves for another 25 years in the military. So at this point, you're probably saying to yourself, Rick had a very interesting military career, so he's probably just going to retire to a boring civilian life. Wrong. Throughout all the ups and downs of getting married, having children, getting divorced, and moving around the country, Rick finds himself in the New York metropolitan area and takes a job with Morgan Stanley, which happens to be based in New York City, the Twin Towers. And let's be honest, Rick is way overqualified for the job of security director at a business firm, but nonetheless, he is not a Johnny-come-lately. He comes to work with his toolbox and he gets dirty when he needs to. Okay, fast forward, it's 1993 and Ramzi Youssef, this trash bag, attacks the Twin Towers. Acting on behalf of the terrorist network Al-Qaeda, Youssef placed bombs inside of trucks and drove them into the basement of the World Trade Center Twin Towers. Their ultimate goal was to take down the towers, which was unsuccessful. However, 6 people were killed in this attack. This clearly gets under Rick's skin and he realizes that this will happen again. So he painstakingly runs security and safety drills to the point where they felt like Rick was inconveniencing them and he was on the same level as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket.
You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
Now that's probably an overstatement, but to Rick it didn't matter because at the end of the day, saving lives was the most important thing. Okay, here's the point in the story and where it gets real. On September 11th, 2001, 4 planes were hijacked by the Al-Qaeda terrorist network and used to carry out suicide attacks against our country. 2 of these planes were used to crash into the North and South Towers of the World Trade Center. And it's at this point that Rick springs into action. It reminds me of Abigail Adams' favorite quote, "Affliction is the good man's shining time." Through the chaos, Rick took charge and refused to accept the stay-in-place orders. Instead, he falls back on his training and ushers out over 2,700 people from the World Trade Center. While evacuating, Rick got on the bullhorn and would sing patriotic songs such as God Bless America to keep people calm. When these people reach the ground level, Rick goes full Optimus Prime mode.
I am Optimus Prime.
I'm not leaving.
The show goes on! This is my home! They're gonna need a wrecking ball to take me out of here!
He re-enters the building looking for stragglers and is last seen on the 10th floor before the building collapses. Rick Rescorla's selfless actions would be responsible for saving over 2,700 people on the September 11th, 2001 attacks. Okay, so what's the takeaway? 1. Take fire and safety drills serious. 2. Understand that sometimes people are acting on behalf of you, even though you might perceive it to be an inconvenience. And 3. Like Ronald Reagan said,
those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look.
As always, thanks for watching Historical Side Notes, and I'll see you between the pages.